And how you get your guys to not get a little big-headed this week after coming off the win and everyone's going to be patting them on the back.
Yeah, I think we know the challenge that we're in for with Rutgers. You know, just watching them on film, they're a very, very physical football team and by far the best defensive team that we will have faced so far this year. And so there's that's going to be a challenge in itself. Offensively, you know, they will pound it at you, and they've got guys up front that can get things done, and good skill people. They've got excellent running backs, so they've got a good combination of things, and we're going to have to really play exceptionally well to have a chance to make this thing work.
Is that a concern though with the way you guys handled Marshall? And like I said, you know, it's just 2 votes. There's some people starting to think of your program in that kind of light, and is that something you mention or don't mention, or mention and say, hey guys, this doesn't mean anything right now, we got 9 games to go?
I think we need to talk about where we're at and what our goals are and what it's going to take to reach those goals. And obviously it means getting prepared every week. It means getting better. We got a lot of things that when you look at that film that we can improve on, you know, and I don't want to take anything away from them, because I thought on both sides of the ball as good a game as we've played here at Ohio since myself and the staff have been here, and so it was a great accomplishment by those guys. But you know, in all reality, we've got a lot of good football teams ahead to play, and we're just going to have to keep getting better to do it. I know that. Our staff knows that. Our players, if they don't know that, will end up knowing that.
Coach, you mentioned Rutgers looks like they have a solid defense. A couple penalties that negated touchdowns in the last game. Are you preaching on that this week? Penalties seem like they've been kind of high. Are you working to kind of get rid of those penalties?
You know, actually, if you look at the total number of penalties compared to, I think our opponents were probably down a little bit, and also in total yards penalized. You know, I don't see this team as being a team that's heavily penalized and have hurt themselves a ton. Now, you know, those 2 touchdowns being called back were very, very costly, and but I don't, you know, I haven't seen that as a pattern as we've gone through the season, and so I don't think I'll dwell on that much. You know, obviously we cover penalties every Monday when we meet with them, and it's something that you don't want to get out of hand. I thought it was a physical football game against 2 teams that are rivals, and so you know there were a lot of, you know, chest to chest kind of stuff, and I think our that very well, and so been pleased, I guess, with the way they've managed games so far.
Coach, no one on the team or on the coaching staff here has ever been 3-0 during their tenure at Ohio. How do you expect both the team and the coaching staff to handle that? Is that added pressure or maybe extra motivation?
You know, I see it as motivation. You know, if we haven't been 3-0, we certainly haven't been 4-0. You know, and so that's something that that's obviously is motivating to us. You know, you look at the game of football, you look at sports in general, man, there are a lot of angles you can come at your upcoming game with in terms of motivation, and so you don't want to try to make too much out of any one single thing, but you always want to make your players aware of why they're where they're at, if it's a positive, or why they're where they're at if it's a negative, and so you share all that with them, and you hope that with that they're the kind of football team that will work at going out to practice every day and improving on what needs to be improved on to make themselves a better team.
Any idea on the injury status of Dante Harden and Zach Clark?
Zach is most likely out. We'll know more on him today. Dante, I guess I just list him as questionable right now, and until we see him actually run, don't quite have a handle on that one yet.
Coach, recently a lot of MAC schools have been going up against a lot of MAC qualifying teams, most recently Toledo, Ohio State, Penn State, Temple, have been very competitive but haven't been able to lock it up. What does it mean in the light of the conference and for Ohio to go out and get a win against Rutgers?
Well, anytime you're able to get a win against a BCS school, I think it's a real plus for your program and a plus for the conference. And you know, I think our conference is filled with good football teams this year, and I think it's showing. You know, Ball State beat Indiana. You know, so there's other examples of the MAC conference really showing well this year, and with that in mind, then you just you know, obviously want to try to represent your conference the very best you can every time you step on the football field, and you're doing that, or you have chances to do that every time you're in non-league play, you know. And so, you know, it's not a make or break thing for our conference, and not a make or break thing for our football team, you know. But obviously, everybody wants to get it done.
How good was Marshall compared to some of the teams you played the last couple of years?
Last couple years?
Like non-conference.
Mm-hmm. Well, going in, I thought they were very, very good. And their coach indicated that this was the best Marshall team that, in terms of talent, that he's had since he's been there. And, you know, they just had some things. The ball did not bounce their way early in the game. Now, to our credit, we were in position when it didn't bounce our way to make plays, and when we had our chances, we made the most of those. And so I think there's a lot of credit that should go to our football team. But I think that the game did not represent what Marshall's all about as a football team. I think they're a much better football team than what that score indicated and what really transpired in that game.
With all the talk of conference realignment and now the rumors of Rutgers looking for another conference to play in, any of that become an issue this week for them in terms of preparation, or do you even care?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to affect the players at all. You know, the players are interested in winning football games, and you know, that's just kind of a side venue for them in terms of reading material and something to talk about. But it certainly won't be a distraction to their football team. They'll sounds like they're getting ready to play, with their coach saying this off week is the best off week of preparation he's seen one of his teams have in the 11 years he's been there. So that says an awful lot, and he's certainly satisfied with where their team's at and the progress. So you know, that in itself means that the players and coaches are just zeroed in on winning football games, and let the athletic directors and the presidents take care of the rest.
Dave, a similar team to the one you faced a few years ago in terms of makeup and how they try to win defense, pressure the quarterback, pound it out a little bit on the ground.
Yeah,
similar kind of makeup.
Yeah, I agree. I think their coach does a great job with them and instills toughness. That's what rebuilding that program to that coach was, to Greg, was all about. And I think you see it every time you watch Rutgers play. And so that's the challenge that we face, is combating that and certainly being ready for that. They've got talented football players. They're physical football players, and so they try to beat you down, wear you down, and they try to do that on both sides of the ball. You know, their tackles for loss so far in 2 games, you know, they're right up there in the tops of the country. Their sacks, I think they're averaging, I don't know, 4.5 sacks a game or 4 sacks a game or something, to where that's right up there in the country. And so you can see it on film that they're a pressure defense. You know, they're coming after you, and they're doing it with penetration. And it's not necessarily just always blitzes. It's just how they play. They have a slanted nose, and And when you're trying to block away, man, it's hard for that backside guard to cut him off. He's up the field, and so they, they do some things that are a little different than what we've faced, and they're doing it with good talent. So it's a typical, as you mentioned, I think a Rutgers offense and defense in terms of their game plan.
You mentioned the sack totals and pressure defense. Your O-line gave Tellton all sorts of time against Marshall. What do you make of that matchup heading into this game?
Well, that'll be a key matchup, if one team dominates the line of scrimmage over the other, that's huge. And, I think there'll probably be battles won and lost on both sides. And so it'll come down to making plays and not having some stall outs just disrupt you totally, and so it'll be an interesting game, I think, in that matchup on both the offensive and defensive side of it.
Is it a game where if you give up a few sacks, you just kind of have to deal with it and accept it because they put on a lot of pressure? Yeah,
I'm not good at accepting it, but you're right. You can't let that just throw you in a turmoil. You've got to understand that there's good football players on the other side of the line of scrimmage, and they're going to make some plays. And you just got to make sure that you're making more than they're making. And if you do that, you have your best shot.
Rutgers is a team that likes to throw the ball, and they have a pretty good set of wide receivers. Your secondary had a good game last week, but what do you expect from them heading into this weekend?
Well, they'll be challenged. Not only are they good receivers, they're tall receivers. They've got really good height across the board on their receivers, and so that adds an additional challenge in there because they go up and get the ball. So we got to be obviously ready for that. They have a running back returning. That's an excellent running back. I'm not sure what his status is with the team right now, but they have the true freshman that was recognized as one of the top running backs in the country that they've recruited, and so they'll be strong there. They'll be strong at the receiver core. Their quarterback gets the ball where it needs to go. So it's an offense that you don't see any weaknesses in terms of just trying to say, okay, well here, let's take advantage of this. You just got to play good across the board in order to have a shot.
Do you think that there's just more and more parity in college football? I mean, the fact that you beat New Mexico State beat Minnesota, Minnesota almost beat USC. Is it to the point because you have teams on television and nationwide, there's more and more parity in college football?
Yeah, there's certainly more and more parity than what there was several years ago, and when at one point in time there was unlimited scholarships that could be offered. Then I don't know what it went to. Went to 120, then down to 115. Then I think it went to maybe 105. Then it went to 95. Now it's been down to 85 for some time. But every time you take those steps, that means there's less football players going most likely to some of the top schools, and those players go somewhere else, and you got your shot at them. And some of those players just turn out to be great players. And so you see the parity a lot in college football right now, and I think that will definitely continue.
Jeff King, Derek Roback have been two guys who have been shelved for a while. Any chance they start to work their way back into the mix this week?
Jeff may have an outside shot at it. I think Derek is a week away, and he's at a position that's kind of critical for us right at this point, the tight end spot. Because we had lost two tight ends previous, and so we're down in numbers there, and so if and when Derek comes back, he'll be welcomed, and Jeff King the same way. I think Jeff is thinking about trying to get in a practice or so this week, and it could be 2 weeks away, but we'll see.
good news as far as Noah goes in terms of holding up Saturday night with his hamstring.
Well, yeah, his hamstring's fine, but, you know, he had something that took him out for a while. You know, he's getting looked at today. We'll know more about him. I'd say until we find out more about him, that, you know, may be questionable. The hamstring is not the issue.
Something new.
Any other questions for Coach? Thank you, Coach.
All right, thank you guys and girls.